Very good afternoon, and thanks for clicking on to the 111th edition of the Global Weather and Climate Report. It is the 4 p.m. edition today, and a very warm welcome to everybody. It is a big one today. It is an exciting one. The lamb is cooking in the oven. Let me know in the comments section below what you're having for your Sunday dinner today. I would be curious to know out of nosiness. Good afternoon to our moderators. We've got Sing Splint, we've got Lindsay Vogan, and Paul James active and busy on the live chat this afternoon. So a massive thank you as always for your kind support. It is greatly appreciated. And always do me a favour and hit that like button and let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content. Hello to our moderators and hello to our viewers as well. We've got David Vogan down in Kirkintilloch. We've got Laura Johnson has tuned in this afternoon. Who else have we got? Our good friend Mark Kinnish down in the Wirral. Good afternoon to you, Mark. Mark says, hi Mark, can't make live stream today, got family here, but a question to ask. Do you still think we will have some cold weather during this winter? I think quite honestly, Mark, we know that we will have cold weather at some point this winter season, my friend. I think that kind of goes without saying. However, the question mark would be, how much cold do we get, how prolonged, and how does it compare with the warm episodes that we'll see? I am working at the moment on my early to mid-October winter update. That will be coming up in the next few days as well, but we are going to speak a little winter this afternoon as well. So we also have definitely not that random guy. That's a long one, but a very good afternoon to you, my friend. I hope you're having a good Sunday afternoon and a warm welcome to today's live stream. So at the moment, we have 27 concurrent viewers at the moment. We've also got Paul Farwell tuning in as well. Good afternoon to Mark. Dreary day in Swindon. Looks like Kirk will miss us. Yes, it looks as if it's going to stay slightly to the south and hammer France. We may still see heavy rainfall associated with that, but that will remain to be seen. I did say for the last several days leading up to the weekend coming up that Kirk may go somewhere between northwestern France and southern UK as a landfall point. And we still have Kirk, still a 100 mile per hour Cat 2 hurricane, pressure at 960 millibars, moving in a northeasterly direction, scoot along at 25 miles per hour. We also have Hurricane Leslie, a 90 mile per hour hurricane at 982 millibars, and it is moving in a northwesterly direction at 9 miles per hour. And the big concern is now tropical storm, soon to be potentially Category 3 or greater Hurricane Milton. At the moment, it's a 65 mile per hour storm, minimum central pressure at 991 millibars, moving in an east to southeast direction at 6 miles per hour. Quite an unusual track that this system is likely to take. But as you can see here from NHC's latest cone and forecast track, this system is expected to go due east, then take a turn to more a northwesterly direction and take aim somewhere towards the Tampa Bay region as we move towards the middle portions of this week. So there is going to be a tropical outlook probably quite often this week, so stay tuned for that. But this is not a good sign for our friends down in Florida in particular. There's been a lot of rain. There's obviously a massive cleanup operation still underway with Helene, and now Milton looks as if it's going to move its way towards Florida towards the upcoming week, the middle portions of this week. David says, as we speak, friends of ours closing the pond en route to crossing the pond. I'm assuming that is en route to Virginia. Thankfully, the good news is for Lewis and Susanna, it's going to stay to the south of the Virginia area. Obviously, it's not a good thing for the folks of Florida, but it looks as if it's going to stay primarily around the Florida area and not necessarily make a great impact on other areas that have been severely affected by Helene. Obviously, we've seen the footage coming out in the media with regards to the flooding situation and the devastation that caused. I think it's the second most deadly hurricane to affect the United States since Katrina, and we know obviously what Katrina did. We've got Richard Gray also tuning in. Hello to you, Richard. Hi, Mark. Any chance you can give us some details of the rainfall totals from North Carolina? My brother lives near there and says it's been hell. Cheers, Rich. Well, I'm really sorry to hear about your brother's situation, Richard. I do believe that there was upwards of 20 to 30 inches of rain fell in. Tell me this, Richard, is your brother in the mountains then? I'm assuming he's in western North Carolina where we've seen the worst of the rainfall from Helene. I would be curious to know, Richard, whereabouts your brother's located in North Carolina. I'm assuming it's going to be in the mountains. We've also got Steve tuning in as well. Good afternoon to you, my friend. Hope you're safe and well also. But like I say, we've got a lot to get through this afternoon, so it may actually be around about the hour mark today. So I hope you can hang in with me. We're going to look at what's happened around the world, but also we're going to talk a little bit about winter as well. We've got a record weak polar vortex at the moment. What kind of influence may that have? This is going to be the big question. We still do not know. Obviously, there's people saying, what's winter going to be like? I'm still building the forecast, and we're still quite early on. We've had an interesting trend of 3 out of the last 4 months, the UK has been below average in terms of the temperature anomaly. That's quite interesting, actually, given the amount of warmth within the oceans and the atmosphere. It's quite an interesting trend that we've kept this kind of cool anomaly. It has surprised me, and I'm sure it has surprised many other folks with regards to that. Obviously, we know Europe has had a very, very hot past summer, and we've also seen a very warm September as well. We're starting to remove some of that heat over Central and Eastern Europe, but unfortunately that tends to come at a cost. That comes with heavy record-breaking rainfall. Also, Joyce Vogan, my good old mum, is tuning in this afternoon as well. Hope you're enjoying your weekend and your Sunday, mum. Who else have we got here? We've got Katrine tuning in this afternoon as well. Good afternoon to you, Katrine. And like I said, thanks to our lovely moderators this afternoon. Sing Splint, we've got Lindsay, and we've got Paul James tuning in to help me out with making sure everybody is behaving themselves. But I know for a fact that everybody is well behaved. Everybody is here for the right reasons and just loves to hear my dulcet tone. So yeah. Let me see here. We've got Steve saying, off down to Cornwall camping. Hope it's not too wet. And I've just lost you here. Sorry about that. This week, but knowing my luck, I'm assuming that says instead of a look. We've also got Darian Gower tuning in from Devon. Good afternoon to you, Darian. Hope you're enjoying your afternoon, my friend. So yeah, we're talking a little bit about Milton, likely to be a Cat 3 or stronger hurricane. We've also got our friend Gavin trying to give me a message on Facebook with regards to the long-range prospects of the polar vortex. So, Gavin, I think it's the one that you may have sent in, and I don't think you're actually on the live stream, so I'm probably wasting my time here. Simon Davis, hello to you, my friend, as well. With the current MJO and record low weak vortex, do you think it will be a colder than average winter here in the UK, says Simon. Well, the question mark is, Simon, even though we've got a record weak polar vortex at the moment, there is every chance that that vortex is going to strengthen, and again, very, very hard to say with regards to whether that's going to ramp up, strengthen, and then remain strong, or whether we're going to see it weaken. Now, we've obviously got a solar maximum at the moment here, and a little couple of pieces of information from Joe DeLeo. I will talk about that in a second, because I want to try and have as much structure to today's live stream as possible. I know I jump around an awful lot, and I sometimes don't like that. So we'll talk a little bit about winter. So stay tuned for some chat with regards to that, Simon. So hang fire and stick here if you can, my friend, and we will talk a little bit about the polar vortex, the Van Julian oscillation, the stratosphere, high levels of ozone potentially contributing to the weakening and warming of the stratosphere. Lots of exciting and interesting things to come. I'm no expert. I do depend on other folks to give me some insight in terms of what's going on and how to try and better understand it. By me trying to understand it, then I'll try and share with you what I kind of know about something. But we're all learning here, and that is, I suppose, the good thing. There is no real expert in terms of everybody knowing what's what. So anyway, we have got Paul James saying that the highest rain totals in North Carolina that I know was 31.33 inches in Busick. I think that is 24.12 in Spruce Pine and 24.41 millimeters or inches, sorry, in Mount Mitchell. Mount Mitchell, quite often a snowy but also a very windy spot. I think there was one unconfirmed report of a near 200 mile per hour wind gust there several years ago in Mount Mitchell, North Carolina, and that was pretty incredible stuff. Gavin is tuning in. Good afternoon to you, Gavin. Yes, I was just saying, I don't know if you were already present on the stream, but it's the one I believe you showed me last week with regards to the long-range multi-model run of the stratospheric, or the mean zone of winds, I think it was. But I kind of slightly ran out of time before going live to be able to message you, my friend. So I kind of left it a little bit too late. So sorry about that, and sorry for the kind of rushed question, because I know you're busy yourself. Gavin produced his, I believe, 6th winter update this afternoon as well, or this morning. So do check out Gavin's latest winter update. Always some fantastic information getting thrown out on Gavin's channel. Lots of hard work. Team Gav is busy at the moment trying to get the winter forecast and all the ingredients put together, all the analogues, etc., etc. It goes into much more detail than I do with regards to the background behind the forecast. I think that's probably the best way to put it. As he says, it's a forensic look at all the details. So Gavin says, I posted a link, but not sure if that's the one you wanted. Let me have a very, very quick look. So just bear with me a second, everybody. So, okay. Yes, that's the one I have got. I think it might have been the multi-model run with all the various different models. But anyway, we'll call it quits at that. And also, yes, Gavin says that thanks, my friend. 6th winter update was an epic. I'm certainly going to be looking forward to checking out that 6th winter update, Gavin, when I get a chance, my friend. It is always very, very interesting stuff. So it's a busy live chat this afternoon. We've got 33 concurrent viewers now. That's gone to 34. Hit that like button and let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Definitely not that random guy says 5th winter update with the swingometer at 60-40 for a cold and average winter. So yeah, interesting stuff, I must admit. So anyway, let's have another quick scan through at what is going on with regards to the tropics. We've discussed Milton, likely to be a major and impact Florida during the middle portions of this week. We've got Hurricane Leslie as well. That is expected to become it is a hurricane, obviously, then become a storm and probably drift within the central Atlantic basin and then kind of dissipate, I would imagine. Looking at our friend Jesse Farrell's Twitter page here, showing some quite incredible, astonishing footage, images. The Blue Ridge Parkway may be closed through the beginning of winter in some spots. Right now, it's closed indefinitely from the North Carolina into the Virginia area. Massive tree damage at high elevations. This is from their Facebook page. So very, very sad situation indeed. So there's the image. Look at the damage caused on the Blue Ridge Parkway area, high up in the mountains of North Carolina. So, a tweet here by Phil Klotzbach of CSU. Milton is the sixth hurricane or sixth Atlantic named storm to form since the 24th of September, along with Helene, Isaac, Joyce, Kirk, Leslie. That's the most Atlantic named formations on record between the 24th of September and the 5th of October. Everybody was thinking this was a busted forecast by all sources and entities out there. Certainly, it's an interesting season for sure. It's been slow. We had an unfavourable MJO during the month of August. Atmosphere actually more reflective of El Nino as opposed to La Nina. But we've been seeing changes taking place. The La Nina is stalled, and we'll talk about that in a second here. But it looks as if we are going to see a renewed burst of easterly trade winds. That should help enhance that upwelling again and cool those waters within the equatorial Pacific. We'll look at that in a second. But interesting tweet nonetheless by our friend Phil Klotzbach of Colorado State University. Record-breaking high temperatures again at Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. And we'll hopefully touch on what was I going to say? Kirk. It looks as if it's going to stay to the south of the UK as we move towards the middle portions of this week. Now, I did have a second ago the death toll, which I think is now over 200, if I'm right in saying. Somebody can correct me on that, but this is a tweet back on the 4th of October by Jesse saying that last week's storm knocked down the flood of 1916, historical marker in Asheville. The rain maps for both Helene and the 1916 storm look strikingly similar. So this is the comparison between Helene and the flood of 1916 in North Carolina here. And you can see the epic rainfalls in the mountains with the 1916 system and also Helene also. But yeah, it's been a very, very tragic situation. This is an interesting graphic by numbers. Great flood of 1916 versus Helene. So at least 80 deaths were caused in the 1916 flood. At least 200 deaths have been caused by Helene. Damage, 600 to 700 million, 225 to 250 billion dollars worth of damage. I'm assuming that would be obviously Helene as a whole as opposed to just North Carolina. Maximum rainfall, interesting enough, with the 1916 was 22.22 inches. 36.54 inches of rain fell with Helene, which is interesting. And the Asheville's River Crest back in 1916, 21.70 feet, 26.10 feet with Helene. So pretty crazy stuff, actually. So Katrina says, good afternoon, Swamp Monster. A very good afternoon to you, Swamp Monster. I've not said hello, unfortunately, but a very good afternoon to you. He or she says, are we going to meet a negative NAO? Well, certainly we've got a very deep negative NAO at the moment. But the big question is going to be, is it going to maintain a negative NAO? It's going to depend a lot on the La Nina, but we'll talk about that shortly anyway. So let me see here. Have we got anybody else chatting at the moment here? Just bear with me a little second. We've also got Nathan Richardson also tuning in. Good afternoon to you, Nathan. We've got Corey Sayers. Thoughts on Finland, Lapland, end of November. Will there be enough precipitation and cold enough for snow? Very, very good question, Corey. Again, a little bit far out, my friend, to be able to give a proper forecast. We will look at that. Do check out the European outlooks coming up this week, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the coming weeks and coming months to come. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, yeah, Nathan Richardson says with inflation, of course, we'll have to factor that into account as well. But that number there is really striking. 225 to 250 billion US dollars is pretty astonishing stuff. This Could it possibly exceed Katrina? I don't know, but obviously 2005 is a long time ago, and we know that inflation has went through the roof over that period of time. So Corey says, thanks so much, love the channel. Thank you very much, Corey. I do certainly try my best, my friend, to deliver as unbiased, unhyped, interesting weather content here on the channel as best I can anyway. And the numbers are growing. We did surpass the 2 million views back several weeks ago on the channel, so it is moving in the right direction, and it's very much down to you, the viewer, the subscriber. And spread the love. If you know of folk that are interested in weather that don't happen to know about the channel, do pass on a share of the link and help grow the channel even further. It would be much appreciated. I did see Paul Miller. Did I say hello to you, Paul, already? I think my mind's starting to go in my old age. So yeah, let's crack on anyway. So that is obviously Helene and the devastation that we have seen caused by that system. It will no longer, I think it's safe to say there will not be another Helene in days and well, not days to come, but in the years to come, because that system will most definitely be retired. When you've got a system that is particularly deadly or devastating, they often retire the name, and that is definitely going to be the case with Helene. But the devastation is just remarkable. Check this out here. This is Nashville, North Carolina, shared by AccuWeather. This is from Chris Faber back on September 27th. So, yeah, very, very sad situation indeed. In the other side of the Pacific, we did see the landfall of Typhoon Krathon. These were the scenes in Taiwan. It was a super. I think it was degraded down to a violent typhoon when it made landfall. It was slow moving, and therefore we've seen upwards of 1,500 millimeters of rainfall within a 72 to 96 hour period. Look at these winds blowing through these high rises. Pretty crazy stuff, actually. And like I said, it kind of stalled out, so therefore it was Taiwan is home to some of the biggest rainfall totals anywhere in the world. It's probably the most hit major island in the world from tropical cyclones as well. This is video footage by storm chaser James Reynolds of Typhoon Krathon as it swept into Taiwan. So let's have a quick look and see what the situation is like in terms of temperature normally for the first 6 days of October. So we'll click on to the CDAS data. We've got 41 concurrent viewers at the moment. Massive thank you to everybody. We've got Craig Corner as well. Keep up the good work, Mark. Great content, says Craig. Thank you very much, Craig. I much appreciate the kind words, my friend. And lots of hard work. Busy days here on the channel as well. Lots of extremes taking place locally as well as globally. And also we have got obviously winter fast approaching. Look at these temperature anomalies through the first 6 days of October here. So a quick flashback to the month of September looks like this here. Largely warmer than average across the majority of North America. Slightly cooler from Texas into the Tennessee Valley, lower portions of the Ohio Valley. Majority of South America warmer than average. Australia average to slightly above average across the board. Europe, like it's been the case throughout the course of the summer, very warm compared to average. The Sahel region here, the equatorial portions of Africa, slightly below average due to the rainfall, obviously. Warmer than average across the north, warmer than average across the interior south of Africa, but actually down in the far south of Africa, you notice here below average conditions here. We did obviously see that big snowstorm between Durban and Johannesburg, which caused people to become trapped in their cars for, I think it was something crazy like a couple of days. And I think there was a few deaths caused because of that. Below average conditions across Kazakhstan and into central Russia. Most of China, especially central and eastern China, is above average for the month of September. And look at Western Europe here. Let's look at Europe specifically, and then we'll look at the month of October. So this is October so far. And yeah, quite an interesting one actually, considering what we had for September. Look at the cool across extending from really south of France. It looks as if almost the cold stopped at the Pyrenees, actually warmer than average across Spain and Portugal. Then over the Pyrenees, colder than average. The UK mainland colder than average, but Ireland and Northern Ireland is actually slightly above average, which is interesting enough. And then look at the central and even Eastern Europe below average. Scandinavia below average. You have to get into the Eastern Baltics and far east of Europe to get into that warmer than average conditions. Looking quickly back at September, you can see here that we were slightly below average across the UK and Ireland. That is 3 out of the last 4 months below average. It was August that was slightly above average. And remember, I've got a slightly below average month of October coming up. So could it be 4 out of the past 5 months below average? That will be an interesting question. But you can see here, much of Central, Northern, Eastern Europe has been above average. Looking globally then, and look at how warm compared to average Greenland is. And the reason for that is we've got a very strong block of high pressure over Greenland. That's continuing to feed northerly winds on the eastern side of that high into the northern and well, generally UK as a whole. We've also got obviously an active storm track coming in from the west-southwest as well. We're not going to get the same extreme rainfall during the month of October compared to what we've seen back in September. I'm sure that's good news for many across England and Wales in particular. Drier than average across the northern UK during the month of September. Most of the United States above average. Western Canada, central and western Canada below average. Alaska above average. Eastern Canada above average. Eastern China, but interestingly enough, has been colder than average. And that could be that strong negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. The only area that normally during the winter season would be reflective of a cold trough, given the upper air setup, would be the eastern United States, and we have not seen that. But we've seen the cold Eastern Europe, East Asia, a cold West Central Europe, and very warm conditions up across Greenland so far this month. I think we will see a recovery in the Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. We will start to see a pullback of this pattern going down the road here. We've got Frog's Leg Matthew. Good afternoon to you, Frog's Legs Matthew. Hope you're enjoying your afternoon and enjoying watching on the TV, so you can get to see all my wrinkles up close there, Matthew. And we've also got Steffi Adcock as well. Good afternoon to you, Steffi. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday afternoon as well. So yeah, currently we've got 43 concurrent viewers. You know the script by now. Hit that like button. Let myself and YouTube know that you're enjoying the content here on the channel. Let's continue to crack on and see what is going on around the world. So the Indian monsoon has officially ended. The southwest, this is a tweet here by Gokul. Think that is the right pronunciation. I'm not going to attempt his second name. But Gokul, based in India, says the southwest monsoon season ends officially today. That was the 30th of September. And the observed cumulative all India mean rainfall for 2024 ends at 934.8 millimeters, and a cumulative rainfall departure of plus 7.6%. This puts the monsoon of 2024 in the above normal monsoon year category. A look at the spatial distribution of the cumulative rainfall anomalies across the country shows that the monsoon rains were normal to above normal across many parts of the country, with below normal rainfalls over parts of the Indo-Gangetic plains. I think that is Gangetic. I'm really struggling with that one, even though it's probably not that difficult. Parts of the East India and parts of Northeast India were below average. The east-west asymmetry in the rainfall anomalies along the core of the monsoon zone continues this year as well. Congratulations to the Indian Met Department for the accurate seasonal rainfall. So that is the Indian monsoon now officially over, and it was 7.6% above the average, which is rather interesting actually, and a pretty good call from the Indian Met Service, or department, should I say. So, put this tweet out not that long ago. I suspect the MJO has played a role in stalling the progress of our developing Nina. As the MJO heads back into the Indian Ocean, I suspect we'll see a renewed easterly wind burst at this 850 millibar wind anomaly suggests. So you can see here, it kind of stalled. Probably the MJO being in the central Pacific, moving across the Pacific itself, stalled those easterly winds. Then that allowed temperatures to actually warm up in both Nina Region 3, 4 and 1.2. But with the MJO returning to the Indian Ocean, we should start to see the Walker circulation set back up to a more conducive atmospheric position to enhance the easterly winds. Once you start to get rising motion over the East Indian Ocean and the maritime continent, you've got sinking over the central and East Pacific. You then force the winds to blow from high pressure, to low pressure. So we're going to have essentially, if you picture the Pacific Ocean and think of high pressure to the east and central, lower pressure over the Indian Ocean, winds blow from high pressure to low pressure, we should start to see the winds blow stronger over the Pacific equatorial belt. And there you can see here in the forecast, the 850 winds start to increase really from the eastern to the date line. And as that takes place, we should see Nina Region 3.4 begin to cool somewhat. So the La Nina has stalled. We've actually seen a slight warming in recent times of Nina Region 3-4, ever so slightly. But we should start to see it kick in a little bit more. So this is a very quick glance at what I'm writing at the moment here. This is the early October update. So the latest MJO and the latest ENSO. So MJO means Man-Julian Oscillation here. I've done videos in recent times looking more specifically at what the MJO means. Very important teleconnection, tropical, that can dictate the type of weather pattern within the mid to high latitudes. The stronger the MJO pulses, that's an area of enhanced convection, thunderstorm activity, releases heat into the atmosphere. That then gets projected into the northern latitudes and causes the jet stream to strengthen, weaken, become troughs in the ridges become either increase their wavelength or decrease their wavelength. The MJO really does dictate a lot, and it's also caused the La Nina to kind of stall, I think, because of the position of that convective energy. But the latest of La Nina shows this here. We've seen that little warming take place. We've seen this gradual decrease during the month of August, likely due to the MJO being over the Indian Ocean and the maritime continent. That created quite a persistent easterly wind during the month of August, therefore allowing a steady decrease in water temperatures in Nina Region 3.4. Then the MJO moved eastwards. That stopped the easterly winds and then caused a little bit of warming to take place, as you can see here, between the 22nd of September and around the 6th of October. MJO now going to be heading back into the Indian Ocean. You notice here we're starting to see a trend towards cooling. Notice here, and that is likely increase in easterly trade winds due to the MJO movement. So I go on to say this is likely due to the MJO in the Central Pacific, which halts the easterlies and allows warming of the waters when they should be cooling. Obviously, if you're wanting a La Nina to develop, they need to continue cooling. So, however, with the MJO returning into the Indian Ocean and maritime continent, which is between Australia and Southeast Asia, the Indonesia region, like we observed throughout the month of August, those easterly trades should re-strengthen over the Pacific. You can see here the blues showing up, which means easterlies. With the rising motion and convection returning to the Indian Ocean and maritime continent, this strengthens the easterlies near the dateline, courtesy of winds blowing from high in the East Pacific to low in the Indian Ocean maritime continent. I think there's a 71% chance given by NHC for the month of November, December and January of a La Nina. In fact, there's an 80% chance, I think, for the November through January period of La Nina being present. You can see here the model predictions of ENSO during the September forecast. Generally keeps it at weak territory. I think we're going to see a weak La Nina this upcoming winter season. The question mark is going to be, where is that cool pool set up? Is it the East Pacific or is it in the Central Pacific? And that then dictates other things such as the Manjulian Oscillation. If you have an MJO focused over the maritime continent, you often, almost always, have mild conditions over Eastern North America and Western Europe. What you don't want to see is that cool pool over towards the dateline forces the area of enhanced convection within the tropics to be over the maritime continent. Therefore, you would often see potentially a stronger Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation positive. If you have that enhanced convection more towards the Central Pacific with an east-based La Nina, that often leads to a phase 7, 8 and 1 of the MJO. That then correlates to a negative Arctic oscillation, negative North Atlantic oscillation. So I know it's quite complex, and I'm trying to make it as easy for you to understand as I possibly can. But we certainly have a lot of things to look at and consider with regards to this. The solar maximum at the moment as well. According to Joe DeLeo, expert for many, many years, based at Weatherbell in New York, he says, and this is a couple of little notes here that I've written down, saying the solar maximum, and I know there's people on here, including Steffi, that knows more about solar maximums than I do, and others as well, I would imagine. But solar maximum equals less cloud due to diffused cosmic rays. UV increases by 68%. That's during the solar maximum. And then which warms through ozone chemistry, increasing brightness. So this is the words of Joe DeLeo, by the way, who is an expert. And obviously there's going to be slightly conflicting theories with regards to solar science and that very complex stuff, obviously. But it's interesting what he says. Solar maximum equals less cloud due to diffused cosmic rays. UV is increased by 6 to 8%, which warms through ozone chemistry. Now we've got high levels of ozone within the stratosphere at the moment, likely a contributing factor to the weak polar vortex that we've got at the moment here. And he also goes on to say that the opposite of what I just said with regards to solar maximum happens during low solar. So during solar minimums, the opposite takes place. We have atmospheric flow, which is more amplified and persistent, and you tend to have a more zonal, faster flow during solar maximums. So if we look at this here from Joe DeLeo, now this is off his blog. I don't want to show everything because this is behind the paywall. I do subscribe to Weatherbell, so I don't want to show everything because it's not. I don't want to show something that you actually have to subscribe to. Don't want to get myself into trouble, but this is an interesting graphic here saying the total solar effect. Let's blow this up slightly to make it a bit easier for you to see. Obviously, for folks that are watching on the TV, you can actually see this better. But it says active sun, net warming, geomagnetic storms at high latitudes. So we know that we get more CMEs, which is coronal mass ejections. We've got more solar flares. You tend to have a lot more activity coming off the sun, so you get more aurora borealis, for example. Solar diffused cosmic rays effect on low cloud cover, less clouds. So obviously with less clouds, you've got even stronger UV incoming by 68%, warming through ozone chemistry, low and mid latitudes, brightness visible, and solar irradiance. Now, I wanted to show you this here, which was quite interesting. And that's obviously the effects of low solar minimum, total solar effect, quiet sun, net cooling, lower geomagnetic storms, amplified cold, increased cosmic rays mean more in the way of low clouds, higher albedo and reflectivity. Lower solar flux means lower UV by 68%, which means a cold, expanded polar vortex, more amplified patterns and higher persistence. Now, he says that high solar can mean less blocking, except when you've got a westerly QBO. That's a quasi-biennial oscillation. That's the mean winds blowing within the stratosphere over the equator. Now, he says here when you've got high solar in combination with a west QBO, which we're going to have this winter, he says the west QBO can mean episodes of strat warming in the polar regions, which allows polar air, often trapped at high latitudes, to expand south. Snow is often less in most high flux years or solar maximums. So solar maximum, a contracted polar vortex in the winter, more zonal flow, less blocking, except with a west QBO, stratospheric warmings with a west QBO, more variability, less snow in most winters. So that is the situation with regards to the high solar, which I thought was quite interesting actually. Let me see here. Is there anything else that I just wanted to show you here with regards to that? So yeah, certainly worth a subscription to Weather Bell, because you get daily content. It's always fascinating stuff. So I want to show you this here, right? Because I asked the question there back during the week about the linkage between solar maximum, west QBO, why we've got such a weak polar vortex at the moment. You're normally seeing a polar vortex strengthen, the winds blowing around that circulation of cold air within the stratosphere is record weak for the month of September, but also going into the month of October. And I've asked the question, what is the reasons behind that? And there's some interesting tweets here that has been put out. So I asked the question, and this was one response here by a Christian we follow each other on Twitter. He says that there is only one global circulation, because I asked the question that the stratospheric warming that was seen during the Antarctic winter, the southern winter, does that have some sort of a correlation to the northern winter? Because I remember reading content about the prospects of what goes on over the South Pole during their winter or summer has an impact potentially on the stratosphere over the northern hemisphere, 6 months after what takes place in the south. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But he says that there is no two distinct circulations for the northern and southern hemispheres, and this is possible thanks to the Brewer-Dobson circulation. Amazing stuff. Honestly, this is really, really way beyond my understanding. But he says, therefore, according to studies on the effects of the BDC, or the Brewer-Dobson circulation, what happens at the North and South Pole in winter then has subsequent repercussions in the winter season. This year we also have a west QBO and a solar maximum combination that accelerates the transport of ozone from the equator to the pole. So that's interesting stuff. With the west QBO, accelerates when you've got a solar maximum, it accelerates the release of ozone within the stratosphere over the equator towards the North Pole here. So this is going to be a massive call when it comes to what's going to happen with the stratospheric polar vortex this year. Is it going to strengthen and stay put? Because sometimes you've got a weak polar vortex in the early portions of the winter. That can sometimes be a negative, and it actually could lead to a stronger polar vortex mid and late winter. So this is the big question I'm asking, is the weakness now, is it going to strengthen? Once you get a stronger polar vortex, you get stronger mean zonal westerlies, you get milder conditions. blowing across the northern hemisphere in the middle latitudes. You see all the cold bottled up to the north here, but it's interesting stuff. This, and then Jim Hughes, which is also a solar expert, says the Brewer-Dobson circulation effect on ozone is important, but the 2PV behaves differently. So the two polar vortexes, i.e. the south polar vortex and the north polar vortex, behaves differently, hence why we saw smaller ozone holes during some of the northern hemisphere winters during the gloom and doom warning years. More major warmings to come. And we'll be looking at that, by the way, coming up as well with regards to the prospects of a strat warming going forward here. This is an interesting tweet here by Eigel. Is it Eigel? I don't know how to pronounce that, but clearly knows his stuff, he or she. Because I connected also, is there a connection between the Hunga Tonga volcanic eruption and what's going on within the stratosphere as well? They go on to say that Hunga Tonga, the eruption is not conducive of ozone reinforcement by releasing hydrogen oxide molecules when breaking down in a cooler stratosphere. Water vapor leads to formation of a chlorine atom, which further reacts with O3. Ozone is destroyed. O3 would be even more dense without the Hunga release of H2O. So there's another interesting graphic here. Again, way beyond my understanding, but it's obviously showing the release of the various materials into the stratosphere here. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of talk about this and show you this in a little bit more detail. Rather than that, actual O3 reinforcement is more likely driven by a combination of West QBO and solar maximum, which warming the equatorial stratosphere, West QBO, reinforced by the solar maximum, leading to better formation of, I think O3, is that ozone? I don't know. Supported by a stronger interaction with solar particles. So you obviously increase ozone during particularly a solar maximum. I believe sunlight coming in through the atmosphere creates particles, which then creates ozone, I believe, from a video that I watched on YouTube during the week here. This is another tweet in the feed. As we can see here, the QBO is the main driver of ozone interannual changes in the tropics stratosphere, which is ultimately strengthened or weakened by solar activity increasing or decreasing the interaction with particles in the upper stratosphere, leading to enhanced or not O3. I think that's ozone. So, yeah. Because I wanted to talk a little bit more about this stuff with regards to what's going on within the stratosphere at the moment here. I know Mom and Dad and there's a few other people that are probably like, you've completely lost me. I do apologise for that. This is all part of the winter forecast, because trying to understand what's going on within the atmosphere then leads to possible prediction in terms of what the stratosphere is going to do. So I'll crack on, and then I'll kind of try and draw a line under this. But they say that so high level of ozone is not linked with Hunga Tonga, but more the West QBO solar maximum. So West QBO and the solar maximum is leading to the increase in ozone, not so much the Hunga Tonga eruption, maybe with a dose of tropospheric enhanced warming, weak vortex, likely due to the ozone anomaly. So they're going on to say that the high levels of ozone, possibly due to the solar maximum in the West QBO, is leading to the weak vortex within the stratosphere, because it is more sensitive to ozone induced warming when it is low in early autumn, like a feedback loop. My concern would be, now this could linger on into the winter time and create a sudden stratospheric warming based on what I'm seeing here. My fear would be, if you're a lover of winter, and obviously we know that the government's taken away the warm winter payment and etc. etc. So obviously a lot of people don't want to have a cold winter, but people like myself, and I know many of you here on the channel, hello to you Hazel, hope you're enjoying your afternoon. James098 is also tuning in. This is a deep live stream today, folks, and I apologise if it's not for you, but I'm wanting to look at everything here, and I wanted to specifically talk about this, but this is an interesting one. So high levels of ozone leading to the weak polar vortex, the warming within the stratosphere. The question mark I would ask is this going to continue on into the winter season? If it does, then we could see cold episodes this upcoming winter season. But if the polar vortex was to strengthen, we would see less chance of cold. That is looking at the big picture, obviously. But when it's weak, so in other words, the vortex, the polar vortex, like it is now, also may be improved by the NGO phase 5, 6, 7 and 8 in late September, but current synoptic is not conducive of heat fluxes towards the stratosphere. Because I was wondering about the strong blocking within the troposphere leading to frictional effects in the stratospheric circulation, like we're seeing at the moment here. According to studies, the polar vortex is likely to strengthen again in December before weakening around February and March, which is interesting stuff. It remains to be seen, however, whether ozone will be able to remain this high as the vortex strengthens, which could precondition a weakening later if the conditions become favourable. A 2-week vortex could act as a reflector rather than absorber of tropospheric waves. We will see. So very much appreciate the feedback on this question. Front-loaded, they go on to say front-loaded winter is November, December, is the influence by default of Nina. So it's the default basically of a La Nina. You have a front-loaded winter, and quite honestly at the moment, folks, that is what I'm going for. I think we are going for a front-loaded winter forecast, but yes, we've still got a way to go yet. Followed by a zonal and positive NAO in January and February due to shifting and forcing in the second part of winter, that reinforcing the Pacific high favouring zonal a zonal Atlantic flow when you've got the Pacific high. So we've seen that in 2013-14, very stormy, very wet winter in 13-14. We had the strong block over the North Pacific. We had the warm blob, if you remember, in the Gulf of Alaska. That led to high pressure over the North Pacific up into Alaska, allowing the discharge of Arctic air into the lower 48. That increased the gradient in the thermodynamics between warm conditions in the Caribbean and unusually cold conditions in the Northeast. When you've got that gradient comes together, it strengthens the jet stream. That jet stream becomes very zonal, and that's what we had. One low, one storm after another running into the west of Europe, and particularly the southern half of the UK. It was actually more England and northern France that winter that seen some major storms one after another. It really was quite remarkable. It was due to the temperature differential over eastern North America that caused that. I want to say thanks to Lindsay as well. I believe she donated a very kind donation from Lindsay. So a massive thank you to Lindsay for that. Really appreciate that. I don't want to forget that one. So do we have anybody else? So like I said, it has been quite the in-depth discussion today. Complex. I know some folks will understand better than others. However, it's important to me to look at everything and leave no stone unturned when it comes to forecasting. And this is going to be the 15th consecutive winter forecast, by the way, which is pretty amazing, actually, when you think about it. What time are we on anyway? Just going on for the hour. So we'll try and round up in a second here. Is there anybody else that I've not shouted out? I don't think I have. So obviously, before you leave the stream today, and if you haven't already done so, please hit that like button. It does myself a massive favour by letting YouTube and myself know that you're enjoying the content. It helps the algorithm. It means that the videos are more visible on the YouTube platform, and it creates more exposure. We've got Swamp Monster saying, hey Vogan, what can the Southeast Europe expect for this winter? That is a very good question, Swamp Monster. Tune in, stay tuned to hear. I'm not wanting to make a specific call in Southeastern Europe. I'm trying to kind of build up the ideas with regards to what teleconnections are going to be involved this upcoming winter season, but I would encourage you to stay tuned. Sorry that I'm not really answering that question, but I simply am not entirely sure at the moment here. So obviously I'm working on this early to mid-October winter update, and we're going to be looking more at various things with regards to the La Nina, the solar maximum, the West QBO. So thoughts anyway, what we know currently, we've got a solar maximum, we've got a West QBO, and we've got a weak La Nina combo this winter. What we don't know is where will the core of the coldest waters in the equatorial Pacific sit. In other words, is it going to be the east, central, or throughout the equatorial Pacific? Where will the MJO position and how amplified will it be? Now, if you want to look here quickly, I'll zoom this in. And this is the latest of the CFSV2 model, which shows the month of December. Now, the reasons why I show the the precipitation anomaly is quite important. Now, I harp on about this MJO all the time. When it is over the maritime continent, it tends to lead to a stronger jet, a more zonal flow, milder conditions for Western Europe. When it's in over the maritime continent, that's phases 4 and 5. When it tends to go into the western and towards the central Pacific, so you've got the enhanced convection over the central Pacific, that tends to lead to a more negative North Atlantic oscillation and colder for Eastern North America and Western Europe here. Now, the reasons why we don't want to have a central based La Nina is that the MJO is not going to sit over where the waters are colder than average. So if you've got a central Pacific based La Nina, that tends to kind of flatten the effects of the MJO, but it also tends to focus it more over the areas that we don't want to see it. In other words, phase 4 and 5. What you want to have is the coldest waters over towards the South America side, warmer in the Central Pacific, and often where that warmest anomaly is in terms of the sea surface temperature, quite often that's where the MJO is wanting to sit and become more active. So that is the reasons why we want a more east-based La Nina in combination with the West QBO and the solar maximum. Now you notice here it's kind of between phases 4, 5 and 6 during the month of December. And then obviously the colder waters means less precipitation, more sinking over the Central Pacific near the date line. And then as we move into January, it's as if the moisture, yes, kind of slightly stuck over the maritime continent, but it looks as if we've got a dry signal over northern Indonesia, and also it's trying to extend the moisture into the West Pacific. And then in the month of February, it's got that possible phase 6, 7, even close to 8 of the MJO, which would be more conducive of a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. Here is your central versus east Pacific La Nina in terms of the 500 millibar pattern here. So this is East Pacific La Nina, and you tend to have more in the way of blocking over the North Pacific, but also up towards the north of the UK. So the Europe's here, very difficult to see, I know that. This is North America. Looks as if we've got a bit of a block to the north of the UK, negative over southwestern Europe here. And then if you've got more of a Central Pacific based La Nina, you notice here that we've got low heights. So that would be our positive North Atlantic oscillation, more in the way of wet, windy, milder conditions if you've got a more Central Pacific La Nina. So east versus central La Nina has a massive effect on where the pattern will go here. So these are the very important things that we're looking at here. So anyway, I've ran over the hour. Mark kind of says, does this mean, Mark, we won't see any cold weather at all this winter in the UK? No, my friend, it doesn't. It just means that if it was a more central Pacific-based La Nina, it would likely be a milder winter overall, but not without its potential cold spells, my friend. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to see any cold at all. And nothing really is set in stone either, Mark, yet. We'll still need to see how this La Nina develops here. It's going to be a weak La Nina, but the position of that cold pool is going to be very important. Frogs Legs Matthew says, I'm off to put the kettle on. Have a great evening. Yes, and I am going to stop now as well, because I'm sure everybody is getting tired, including myself. So, like I say, hit that like button. And if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button as well. It would be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching this evening. Do check out Gavin Partridge. I'm sure he will be live streaming at 6 p.m, if I'm right in saying that. A massive thank you to Lindsay, Singsplin and Paul James for moderating today's stream as well. Thank you very much, everybody. And thanks for tuning in and watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Back again, as always, next week. Bye for now.